I wanted to start off by answering a question that someone sent to me. They said, "Hey Rob, how you doing?" So they said that they've recently been doing a deep meditation process, 40 days of intense once a day meditation for 6 months. And she said it's been hard at times, but pretty interesting. And one thing it's making me realize is how busy my mind is. I'm constantly thinking so many thoughts, and the meditation does help calm them a bit, but it's still just a lot going on in my head. And I was curious for your point of view on calming the mind, please. So interestingly, when someone's doing meditation, and I've done it in that way, sit down and you focus on your breathing, especially nose breathing. So when you open your mouth, if you're breathing through your nose, it's more of a non-stressful response. When you open your mouth, it's activating more of a sympathetic response. And so breathing through your nose is it's a really nice way to calm you. And I do mouth taping at night, actually. The whole family does, and we all enjoy it. The girls want to do it. And so what it does is it retrains the nose to breathe through it. And it's much less stressful on the body when you're breathing through the nose. So when you're doing meditation, if you breathe through the nose, it calms you. But as this lady was saying, she said she's doing meditation, but it's unbelievable how busy her mind is. And so this is the problem with a lot of, especially if you're on the right side of the hamster wheel, but both sides, people say, I can't meditate because I've got so many thoughts spinning in my head. So what I've come to understand through these years of really taking a deep dive observation of how my mind works is that there's always, every thought has a trigger to it. Like every thought that comes up is from one of 5 programs, which I've explained before. The hamster wheel protocol is that there are 5 wheels that are spinning. So you can do the traditional method of meditation where your thought comes up, and like a balloon in the sky or a cloud, you let it pass. You come back to your nose, breathing, which brings you back to your physical body and your senses. And in doing so, that gives you a little bit of space between the thought and the present moment. I'm not sure what I'm going to suggest is for everyone. I think it should be. The act of allowing the thought to pass and coming back to the nose is just a technique to try and get a little bit of distance between you and the mind. And so that is helpful, but she says she still can't stop the mind from spinning. So what I like to talk about with meditation is I observe the thought. And when the thought comes up, what I'm doing is I am categorizing that thought into one of the 5 silos or one of the 5 roots. And in doing so, I'm becoming aware of how mechanical and how basic this thinking thing is. Number 1 is I don't choose the thoughts, they just come up. And then in doing so, instead of just allowing them to pass, because there's no understanding happening there, is there? You just let it go. What I want to do is categorize it, and in doing so, realizing it's one of the wheels. And why is that so important? Well, I know the wheels were created by a child, and they're just on loop, like a jukebox with 5 songs on. And so what most people do is they get caught in the story of one of the programs. So let's say paying attention to ignore. And maybe today I have this thought in the back of my head like, wow, I'm working so hard, but my family's they don't give a shit. I have to go make my food, right? So there's possible support let down there, but also being ignored, not being paid attention to. Probably support let down. And so in understanding that it's an old program, a defense system, just throwing things up because it's a scared child, then I know that it's an old program on loop. And so I don't need to let it pass. Well, I can do, but I can just go to the programmer of it I say, hey, it's okay. You don't need to worry. It's all good. I'm here. It's okay. That's my go-to. And in doing so, instantly the child, the operating system that keeps, that defense system that keeps coming up in the background, that'll lower, that'll just calm down. And so what you find is that you're not letting the clouds go past like you were doing before, is you start to become much more quiet. Because after a while of seeing the 5 programs, you're like, oh yeah, I know that one. And then the child who's trying to defend you is calm. And so there's no thoughts. And so in understanding the mind, which is what meditation should be, well, meditation means understanding the mind. And so you, in understanding it, then it calms down because it's just an old operating system. So do you see that I'm sure there are people who do meditation, that's cool, and it helps them. But for me, it's always been important to understand the actual mechanics of my mind. And then in doing so, it calms it right down. So you can do, as I've talked about before, specific meditations where I focus on a particular area of my life and look for what are the thoughts coming up when I think about that. And there's usually a main hamster wheel with your business, with the relationship. What you normally find is that it's the same hamster wheel across the board. So it comes up in various times that one gets triggered more than the other, and then they calm down. So you can specifically look at that and dissolve it. But for me, what I do every day, if my mind is racing or I'm caught up in my day, is I go and sit down. And the most valuable thing for me is my relationship with little Rob and myself. It's kind of the same thing. So I sit there and I check in. You know, I've always checked in every day, and I check in. I go, how's my energy? Well, I feel a little bit speedy and my thoughts are racing. Let me watch them. And then I see the main hamster wheel. I go, it's that hamster wheel. Little Rob's worried about something or feeling guilty or whatever. It's okay. And then it calms down. I come back into my body and everything's calm. So that's meditation for me. It's checking in, and it's just a question of understanding this mind. When you first start, it's extremely difficult and your mind's speeding and you can't see any program. But then if using this framework is very, very simple, and you just start to differentiate between the programs. When you get good at that, it's almost like, it's like riding a bike. Close your eyes. When you start, you're like, oh, and then you get good at it, and then you can do wheelies. So wheelies with meditation is just not having to meditate. It's just being completely present and chilled. So I've been there where my mind was spinning all the time. I find I've been there when if I have a bad dream, and then I look for what's going on, because the dream is usually bringing up something in your unconscious that needs to be seen, and then you look, and then it dissolves, you go back to sleep. All of these programs are, let's say you're on the left, when you start seeing your positioning, you start hearing the voice that's talking from that left-sided position, let's say maybe too much earth element or water element, too much yin, you're going to start to understand, wow, I procrastinate, I don't do, I'm fearful of failing, so I won't do anything. So you understand your constitution and the way your mind works. Then you can start to see the difference between other people, and you start to open up to the right. And the righties find it more difficult to meditate or to take the time to observe, because it makes them feel unable. But in doing so, it's very powerful for them, because they have to realize that they're constantly searching to be valuable and to achieve and be proud of themselves. But there's no let up, and they're going to get burnt, and it'll flip them to the left hard. So them understanding that, when you talk to someone, you explain it in detail, they go, this is dangerous for me. This way of behaving is burning the candle from both ends, and I'm too fire, and I can't stop, and then I can't sleep at night. So it's just, how valuable is your life? If you haven't, how valuable is meditation? Well, everyone goes, it's super valuable. There are these studies on it. No, it's super valuable because it creates your reality. And if you're running glitchy code and you're controlled by it, you're wrecked. You will get wrecked. I can't say it enough. You're on the right, you're going to get wrecked. Left is just wrecked constantly. So the most valuable thing is meditation, which is understanding your mind, which is understanding that you're run by 5 programs created in your very early childhood that control you. And if you don't do this work, then you're going to have a life that's not valuable. You're going to get the opposite, which is a life where you waste your life. And I'll say it's worthless, which will trigger some people. But do you want to have a valuable life? Do you want to not waste it? Then you need to do this. It's an internal game. There's nothing else out there you can do to change this. You have to do the work within. So that's answering that question. And then we can go live to some questions if you want me to go into anything in particular.